Welcome to CEO Corner. My name is Sarah McGrath, partner in 360 Search Recruitment Services across Ireland and the UK, and I work with CEOs and senior executives, helping them build their teams and find their next career move. I would like to introduce Michelle O'Keefe, Head of Wealth Management and Advisory in Goodbody. Michelle has responsibility for the growth and expansion of financial planning, wealth management and high net worth offering across Dublin, Cork and regional offices. Michelle has a 28-year background in financial advisory, treasury and portfolio management, where she has held senior partner level positions. Prior to working with Goodbody, Michelle set up a private wealth MiFID entity business with BDO and was managing director for 7 years before selling the business to Goodbody in 2014. Michelle holds a postgrad diploma in financial services, a qualification in certified financial planning, specialist investment advisor, registered stockbroker and qualified financial advisor. Michelle was the first female director in Davy Private Clients, the first female partner and managing director in BDO Dublin, and the first female head of wealth advisory in Goodbody. Michelle has a career full of accolades, and not only that, she's raised a family. And I'm pleased that Michelle has agreed to join us on CEO Corner to share her story. Welcome to CEO Corner, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. So you have some impressive accolades throughout your career. You were the first female director in Davy, the first female partner and to set up a business with BDO, and then the first female to sell a business into Goodbody and become head of wealth advisory services. So I'd love to know, really, was that a goal for you? Did you set out to kind of reach this level and to achieve these accolades?
Gosh, I'd love to say I had a plan, but I didn't. So where I started was I started in auctioneering actually. I thought that was going to be my profession, did that for a couple of years, really enjoyed it. But I was in my early 20s, so I wanted a bit of buzz, I wanted to work for a big firm and I was working for a small practice. So I took a job in Arthur Andersen, who are gone obviously now. And when I was there, I was approached by Davy for a role in private client department, and I took it and had no clue about the stock market, had no clue about investments, just didn't know what I was doing. Started there and they had this share dealing desk. It was a share shop downstairs in their premises in Dawson Street, and people could come in and they could sell their shares over the counter or they could buy their shares, and you had to put on the trades. And I just really loved what I was doing. It was a great buzz. The markets were there. When you find something that you love and that you really enjoy doing, then you will be successful at it.
Yeah, so you go for it.
You go for it.
And it happens naturally, I think, as well. You go from one opportunity and something else presents itself, and I guess it's just about actually grabbing it and going for it as well.
I've energy and drive and ambition, so you go for everything, and sure, look, if you fail, you fail, but you give it a go.
You can learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
And what does success mean to you now versus, what it may have meant to you in your earlier career?
I'd say early in my career, and I think, people would be lying if they don't say this, it was all about money, you had to earn. I was young, I had a young family, your position and what you could earn was really important. I think even driving whatever car you drove, I think was important at that stage. It's all history. But I think now what success means to me now is very different. So I see success now as being in a position to kind of shape a business, to affect change. And I think also, for example, in the role that I'm in at the moment, there's kind of two different parts to it. So there's one part where I have customer base, clients, I deal with them all the time, and being able to sit down with them, extract that information, provide solutions, and in time watch those things come to fruition that are right for them and for their families. That's success. In terms of, I suppose, the people I manage and the staff I manage, I'd like to think that I'd mentor those, and also watching them grow and develop through their careers and helping them with that. Again, that's so where I measured success back in the day and where I measure it now is quite different.
Great. And when you left Davy and you joined BDO and were setting up a business inside of BDO, what sort of challenges did you face? No doubt many of them. And how did you overcome them?
There was lots of challenges. I think the first of them was, you're right, I was the first female partner in there, and I had 20 male partners, and I think that was a challenge for them rather than for me. I wouldn't be a shrinking violet, so I'd say it took a while for them to get used to me. I'd like to think that I brought something different to the partnership table, in not only because I'm a woman, but because I'd come from a very dynamic business environment. I kind of had a different way of looking at things and viewing things, and I'd like to think I brought that to the table. But I think the biggest challenge in that was really my timing.
Okay.
So I left my previous role at the top of the market. I was out of the market for 6 months, because you have to be. And when I started back, the world was falling apart. It was 2007. It was November 2007 when I started with BDO, and it took me 12 months to get my MiFID authorizations. So that allows you to give advice and trade. Honestly, when I finally got that, the world was a different place. So there was millions wiped off the market. You had investors losing, so much money. You had banks collapsing. You had people losing shares in banks that they thought were, they would have forever. So it was a very, very different environment. In the middle of all that, I'm trying to set up an advisory service. God, it was the hardest work I ever did. I never worked so hard, but with it came this massive responsibility, because you had all of this team of people who were wholly dependent on you being successful so that they could keep their job at a time when everybody was losing them. And really it was really challenging. You really had to dig deep, work really hard, put the head down. I think everybody should actually own their own business at some point, and understand what that's like, because it is extremely challenging to run a business and have that responsibility for people. But look, when I look back on it, and when I look back on it, panic. It was really successful, and we were really successful, and we set up a really successful business, and we came through it. But it was down to really, really hard work. Hard work. So.
I know, and it's it's time to show your grit. And it's no doubt, when you're in those situations and it's okay, what have I done? What have I actually signed myself up for?
Scary.
When you get through it, I look at what you've achieved now. And throughout your career, what are some of the most important leadership lessons that you've learned?
I suppose, I nearly flip it over and think, what does a good leader look like? So I think, you have to lead by example. You have to have energy and drive. You've got to have a clear direction, you really do, and you've got to be able to bring people with you. And I would say I failed, sometimes doing that, because I'm racing off doing something that I think needs to be done, and I've kind of forgotten to communicate to the people around me that listen guys, this is where we're going. So you need a patience and effective communication, and I actually think that, I think if you're hungry and you've got drive and you really understand your business and understand the direction you want to go in, I think that motivates people around you. So
they can. It's a sense it's an energy, and people naturally want to kind of follow an idea, especially once it's communicated well and everybody knows what their role is in it. The 2019 financial services report by the central bank is actually showing that there's still very low levels of women holding and taking PCF roles. Asset management is about 13%, banking 20%, and insurance is probably the highest at 25%. What are you seeing in your field around gender roles and kind of male and female holding senior slots?
I mean, it's changed a lot. When I first started out, I think there was 2 ladies in the dealing room. There were 2 senior analysts, in corporate finance, that were females in the business that I was in. But that's moved on, and there are much more women. In Goodbody, I would say there's a lot of women who hold senior positions. Much more so than I would have seen before I went there. And I know that back in BDO now there's a lot more senior partners, and there are, females have come through to partnership too. So, they've a kind of a clear direction. So things are changing. They're probably not changing as fast as we'd like them to change. And the interesting thing is, when we advertise for roles in stockbroking in various parts of the business, even down to graduate level, so we take in graduates every year, there are more men that apply for the roles than women.
Yeah.
So we're kind of looking at it thinking, oh, have we got the wrong language around this? Are we explaining the role properly? Do people really understand, what we're advertising here? And I'm always disappointed that there are so few women go for those roles. And I know a lot of women go for roles in accountancy and all. I just don't understand why they don't go for roles in this business, because this is really a people business and women would do very, very well at it. So I do think it's changing.
Yeah.
I still think there's much more men in the business than there are women. But maybe now with the advent of COVID and people being able to run businesses and run their own business from home, and all our own staff are working from home at the moment. So I think that it might encourage more women to go for roles like that, because they'll be able to have that flexibility
and have
around
the balance.
it. Yeah, and have that
I think there's
balance.
probably a persona or a perception maybe that it's long hours, and that you need to be in the office 10 hours a day, and I think perhaps that can maybe put some women off, hopefully it does change the perception.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, up to, I would say, March last, when we first kicked off, March 2020, it was long hours, very long hours, and you were in the office all the time. But we've all realised that we can do things from our home and from different locations. So I think this might just open a whole new place for women.
It has. I do agree. Like as terrible as it's been for businesses, there has been some eye-opening scenarios. People can work from home and better quality of life. And we're seeing it in our company and especially in our industry as well. The psychology of investing is actually is interesting. There are differences between men and women when we talk about money and when it comes to investing. And I read that women tend to expect less from their investment. They're more risk averse. I think it was 70% of women expect 0% to 20% return on their investment, and with men, 65% expect 20 to 40%. Do you see that type of gender difference, behaviour difference when it comes to investing among your portfolio?
You do, but in certain age groups. Okay. So if you break it down to age groups, and I'm really generalising here, generally you will see males in their kind of 20s to 30s, the Gordon Gekko era, so that they are interested in stock picking. Some of them are very successful at it, and they're interested in specific stock picking. They're interested in investing. They have an interest in the markets. They do expect high returns, and they expect them quickly. But that's almost there's a specific age group that applies to. Women, I suppose, in that same age group, they do invest, but they invest more for the longer term. I don't think they expect zero, but I do, so I challenge some of those statistics, but I do think that they want the similar returns to what the men want, but they're prepared to wait that bit longer to get them. So they tend to invest in kind of funds and things like that, so that they can take a long-term view. The one thing that we do know is women don't like losing money. They really don't. And I think we're all guilty of that. So they do invest, and they do invest for the longer term. But there are significant differences. I think it's like we're running a series at the moment in Goodbody for women, because lots of women are very wealthy in their own right, and there's a lot of women at the pinnacles of their careers, and they're earning well, and they do need to take responsibility for their earnings and for investing their money wisely. And so, often people get caught up in their careers and forget all about that part of it, but it's there, and it's intergenerational money, and you need to think about that. So we're trying to I suppose educate women more on investing and what that might look like for them. So,
and I do think even educating women from a younger age to know that you don't necessarily have to just save your money. You can invest and gain a return on it. And I wonder in maybe some cohorts or some industries that it's not at the forefront of somebody's mind that, oh, here I have $5,000 or 2,000 or whatever it may be. I'll invest it. But I think putting it out there and encouraging will definitely, hopefully, kind of encourage more women.
I agree.
And Michelle, you've continued to have success in your career, and when I'm working with women in particular, and some men, the question of juggling career and home life comes into our conversation regularly, all the time. And sometimes we have to kind of negotiate at how it happens, how it works at home versus how you can commit to your career, and do you choose to take that next step into your career. How have you managed to juggle such a formidable career with, accolades of being the first female in many disciplines, and to raise a family and your children having their own success in their own right?
Oh, I would say with difficulty. I'd love to say it was all very easy, but I have a lot of energy and drive, and I wanted to be successful, and there were things I wanted to do, so you kind of make it happen, but it couldn't happen without my husband, actually, and certainly without my family and extended family, because you need that, as it's at different times in the development of your children that you need more help. And it all looks so smooth from the outside, and everybody thinks, oh God, isn't she great, and she's managing all that, and it's chaos. So, if you have a sick day, oh my God, everything is thrown into chaos. So I do know that you absolutely need the support. You can't be successful without people around you supporting you and helping you. And I always found the worst part was kind of the summer, because the summer holidays, they got 2 months off, and you got 2 weeks. So, you had to be really organised. So I would say organisation and absolutely having people around you. I do feel sorry for people who maybe come into this country who don't have that family network and that support, because that must be extremely challenging. But I was fortunate enough to have that.
Another challenge, especially for women, that I encounter when we're working on their next career move is around career and family, is a sense of guilt. And I have this conversation more times. I don't have children, so I feel I have empathy, but I can never really understand what that sense of guilt feels. Not being home for bedtime, or feeling guilty because your whole divided attention is not on raising your family. It's split between your career. I'd imagine you felt the same at some point. How have you rationalised that? How have you made that work and kind of use it and empower yourself just to continue with your career?
I think, guilt around going to work it's definitely a woman thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've asked a couple of men, would they feel guilty for going to work and leaving their children at home, and they just look at me like I have 10 heads. So it's definitely a woman thing. It's definitely inbuilt, and you've got to get beyond that. You've got to ignore it, and focus on what you want to do, and do what's right for you. So, for anybody and any woman, I think every woman feels guilt. Like, I remember dropping my kids to the creche in the morning, and it might be one of those mornings where there was tears, and as they're going in the door, and you're leaving them, and you're going, oh God, I feel just terrible. Then I'm thinking, what am I doing? I'm picking them up. They get my undivided attention for the rest of the evening. For every spare minute I had, they got my undivided attention for it. The weekends, the holidays, everything. So you kind of sit back and go, oh, stop beating yourself up. Yeah. Get on with what you do. The one thing that I would say is, though, that guilt is put on you. It used to be in the media a lot, women who stayed at home or women who worked, and there was always this vice versa thing. And but I think women do it to other women. Women put guilt on other women. So if you make a decision to stay at home or work from home, or make a decision to go to work, that's your decision. You make it for your own reasons, and you get on with it, and you ignore the noise that's there in the background. And I think women need to support other women. If you make your decisions for whatever reason, they're your decisions. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and I believe in constantly trying to improve yourself, constant self-improvement, especially if you are driven and want to have a career. How do you, and what are you focusing on at the moment about building your career and improving in your current role?
I think, like the markets change. Like in the role that I'm in, you're dependent on markets, you're dependent on people, innovation. Like there's so many things happening around you, you know, like everything, like Zoom is our new friend.
Yeah.
So everything, you're constantly changing and learning, and you have to keep on top of that. So there's often new investment options, there's new ideas, and you're bringing those to your customers. So to be able to bring to your customers the optimal solutions, you have to be on top of things. So I would say every day is a school day. You're constantly learning, you know.
Yeah. And have you ever experienced a time where you've been extremely out of your comfort zone and you've had to basically feel the fear and do it anyway? And how have you handled that?
I would say probably the scariest time career-wise was really when I started in BDO, because you're a partner, so you're responsible for the business, you're responsible for your P&L, you're responsible for staff, you're responsible for making it a success. And when you work for an employer, you know you're getting your salary at the end of the month, even if you mess up. And unless you do something really bad, you're still going to have your job. But as an employer, if you like, which is what you are as a partner in a business, there's a whole set of responsibilities that you have to think differently, you have to behave differently, you got to step up. Like failure isn't an option, because everybody around you is dependent on you bringing it on, so you can't fail. And like that's scary. So when I set up the MiFID authorizations, obviously you are governed by the central bank, and you have certain things you have to adhere to. And unlike what I have in Goodbody, so in Goodbody you've got this massive team of compliance professionals behind you, so they're there to help you do your job. But I didn't have that. So I suddenly had to step into something that I really didn't know a huge amount about and learn it pretty quickly, because you couldn't make mistakes, and you can't make mistakes with people's money. That was really scary. So it was like head down, work hard and learn as you go. So I think that's how I overcame those things. But there were scary times.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
especially when it's such large sums of money. And within the field that you're in, and as somebody who is managing such large sums of money and making decisions on behalf of your client base, what sort of characteristics do you feel you need to possess to succeed in this in your field?
I think like if somebody was starting tomorrow, obviously they need to be smart and have analytical skills and have the right background in terms of their schooling. But the other things that we look for are like honesty. You would say honesty, humility, and I would say also integrity and good listening skills. But they're really, really important, because I think in this business, look, there's lots of investment houses. We do lots of things. There's variations on some things we do, and we all have kind of slightly different offerings. But at the end of the day, people buy people. Yeah. They really do. And the person that I want to trust my money to is somebody I can trust, somebody who's honest and who has integrity, and somebody who's going to stick with me through thick and thin. And so when we're looking to employ people, those are the qualities we look for in our staff. And they're really, really important. So if you think about it, when somebody comes to you to invest their money, they're telling you everything about themselves. They're telling you everything about their family. They're handing over vast sums of money. And this isn't just for them, it's for their family, and it's intergenerational. So from our perspective, I think those are the qualities that we look for in people. Good. Yeah.
Sometimes they're as well, sometimes they are hard to test in an interview setting. You really need to have a strong sense of what you're looking for to be able to really know those attributes. And the role that you carry out and your whole career has, it's a serious job, and it requires huge attention to detail and focus, commitment, long hours, scaring yourself. And you've raised a family. And how do you find time for a balance? How do you find time for you and to keep yourself emotionally and physically well?
I would say when the children were younger and you're only growing in your career, so you are putting in like lots of hours and you're studying at night and doing things like that as well. So I would say there wasn't a huge amount of time for yourself, you know. You certainly didn't get time to put the makeup on, and you looked a bit of a wreck most of the time. I just think you just didn't have a huge amount of time. So the things that you did were, you know, you went for walks with the kids or whatever. So it was very different. But as, you know, as time goes on and they, you know, moved into secondary school and then moved on to college and that, you go back to doing the things that you really liked doing before. And I think we're big into motorbikes. So we're big bikers. We're big bikers.
Where's your leather jacket?
Yeah, not on me today. But we're big into motorbikes. We're big into cars, speed in general.
Love it.
So I think it's very different. It's funny because in your work life you have to be serious. You have to be responsible. You know, it's all very serious. But my personal life really doesn't mirror that. So, you know, for example, we go to a Ducati festival in Italy every 2 years. And there's like 100,000 bikers. There's music.
Wow.
It's great fun. So I think, you know, things like that. Also, my husband bought me a saxophone when we first got married. Because I loved the saxophone, and so I started playing it, thought it was really cool, and then the children came along and that got put on hold. So I started back again just before Christmas with a very patient guy. He's doing it online at the moment, and so I'm back learning the saxophone, and sure, who knows, maybe a musician's my next career, who knows, you know, we'll see.
Wow.
We'll see, yeah.
Well, to wrap up our interview,
Yeah.
We have fun questions at the end, so I would like to know, what was the last book that you read?
Oh, it's a total beach book. I read Harlan Coben, Win is the name of it.
Okay,
so, yeah.
okay.
Total beach book.
Okay, yeah, so you switch off book.
Switch off.
Yeah. And who do you admire most in the world and why?
Do you know, this is awful. I really don't have a hero or heroes. I really don't. I'd say my husband's a hero for putting up with me, but he's probably the hero. There's nobody really. I would say that I admire people with talent.
Yeah.
So people who can sing or write, or musicians and, you know, racing drivers, all of that. I admire people with talent, but I don't have a standout person that inspires me.
Okay. And if you were stuck on a desert island, what 3 items would you bring and why?
You know, you'd love to say, be really practical and say like a rope and something to light a fire. I would think my, definitely a book, my music, and can I say a boat?
Or you can have whatever you want.
I love a boat.
There you go. That's the most practical one that we've had. So no problem at all. Brilliant. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for your time. It was excellent.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.